Welcome back. We are talking about Chapter 11, multi-step equations and inequalities. And we're focusing on Lesson 2, solving multi-step equations. So in the past, we've talked about one-step equations, and then last lesson we talked about two-step equations, and now we're talking about multi-step equations. So we're just building upon each lesson. So let's just go over this. It says some equations require more than two steps to solve. And those are the kind of equations that we're going to be solving today. To make these equations easier to solve, first combine any like terms on, this is key, on the same side of the equation. So let's say we had something like this, like terms would be something like 2x and 3x. Those are like terms. So if you had to add them and you had an equation like that or something, and they're on the same side of the equation, that's key, you can go 2x plus 3x, which is 5x. However, if we had something like this where it was 2x equals 3x plus 2. Well, these are like terms, but they're not on the same side of the equation, so you could not combine them like we did down here. The key is that they're on the same side of the equation. They have to be on the same side. And here, this equation, they're on different sides of the equation, so you cannot combine them. You can only combine like terms at this point when they're on the same side of the equation. So, also, you may need to use the distributive property to complete multiplication that involves parentheses. So that looks like down here in problem number 2, we're going to have to use some little distributive property here, okay? So let's start with problem number 1. And for problem number 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the equation into two sides, okay? This is one side of the equation here, and the other side of the equation is here. Now, what I'm looking at on each sides of the equation, are there any like terms? So on this yellow side, are there any like terms? And what I see is I see that there is a 5a here, and there is a 3a here. So since those are like terms on the same side of the equation, I can combine those. So I'm going to go 5a plus 3a, which is 8a minus 7 equals 17. Now 17, there's nothing to combine over here on this side of the equation, so I'm just going to drop down that 17. Well, now at this point, we're kind of back to the last lesson. We have a two-step equation. I'm trying to figure out what A is, right? And so I'm trying to isolate this A, get this A by itself, figure out what that is, but remember, I have to keep this 8A together, right? I have to keep that together until it's the last thing. So I'm going to get rid of this negative 7. So the inverse operation of that would be a positive 7 to both sides. Negative 7 and positive 7 cancel each other out. I'm left with 8a equals 17 plus 7. That is 7 plus 7 is 14. Write the 4, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So it's equal to 24. I'm still trying to get a by itself. I have 8 times a, and now it's time to get rid of that 8. So 8, the inverse operation of multiplication would be division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 1 times a is a. So I have a equals 24 divided by 8 is 3. So I have a equals 3. So that's my answer. However, I need to check my answer. So I'm going to write the word check. I'm going to write the original equation. So 5a minus 7 plus 3a equals 17. And now there's an A in two different places, right here and right here. So I need to make sure that I substitute that 3 in both places. So I'm going to go 5 times 3 minus 7 plus 3 times 3 equals 17. Okay, now just order of operations. I have to do the multiplication first. So 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 minus 7 plus, oh, here's another multiplication. 3 times 3 is 9. You do multiplication left to right, okay? I'm trying to keep my equal signs lined up. And then I'm just going to do the addition and subtraction left to right. So 15 minus 7 is 8 plus 9. And 8 plus 9 is 17. 17 equals 17. This is a true statement, which means our answer right here is the solution to the original equation. So, all right, we got that one right. Let's go on to number 2. Now, number 2 is where we have parentheses. So we're going to have to use that distributive property. So let's go ahead. We have 4 multiplied by the quantity. So whenever you have parentheses, you say multiply, and 4 is right outside of it. You say 4 multiplied by the quantity, x plus 6 minus 15 equals 21. So we have 2 sides of the equations. Again, this is one side, and this is the other side of the equation. So when I see the parentheses, the first thing I want to do is use the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to go 4 times x and then 4 times 6. So 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times a positive 6 is a positive 24, and then I just bring down this negative 15 equals 21. So at this point, this next stage right here, I'm trying to look and say, hey, on this side of the equation, is there anything that I can simplify? Are there any like terms that I can simplify? And what I see is I see that there's some numbers. There's a positive 24 here, and there's a negative 15 here. So I can simplify those numbers and combine it into one number. And so that's what I want to do. So I have a positive 24 and a negative 15. The signs are different, so I'm going to take the difference between 24 and 15. Okay, so I can't subtract the 4 from the 5, so I need to borrow from this 2, make that a 1. So 14 take away 5 would be 9. So this ends up being 4x. It's 9, but I got to figure out, is it positive or negative? I look at both of the numbers. 24 is bigger. 24 is positive. That means that my answer is going to be a positive 9. Okay, and then I don't need to simplify anything over here on the right side of the equation because it's already, simplified as much as it can. Perfect. Now it's just to a 2-step equation. I'm trying to get x by itself. Okay, I got to keep this 4x together until it is time, which means I got to get rid of this positive 9. So the inverse of a positive 9 would be subtracting by 9, or negative 9 to both sides. Those cancel out and become 0. I have 4x equals 21 minus 9. I'm going to do that on the side here. Uh-oh. Okay. 21 minus 9 would be, okay, I have to borrow from the 2, making that 11. 11 minus 9 is 2, and then you bring that down, so it's going to be 12. Okay, I'm trying to determine what x is. Got to get it by itself. 4 times x. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times x is x. Now x is by itself. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So x equals 3 is the answer. Okay, but let's go ahead and check it. So I'm going to write the word check over here. I'm going to write the original equation just like it is here. So 4 multiplied by the quantity x plus 6 minus 15 equals 21. Okay, I'm double check, make sure I wrote it all correctly. 4 multiplied by the quantity, x plus 6 minus 15 equals 21. Okay, wrote it correctly. Okay, now I'm going to substitute this 3 in for the x. Now I always make sure I write it correctly. The only reason why I do that is every once in a while, like, I write it incorrectly, and then I'll do the whole check, and then something will be wrong, and I gotta go find my mistake. And usually what I find out is that the reason why it's wrong is because I didn't write it correctly. So I am in the kind of in the pattern of or routine of whenever I write my check and I write my original equation, I go ahead and make sure I double check that to make sure I wrote every little detail correctly. So to save yourself a lot of pain and agony, I would suggest that you do the same. Okay, let's go ahead and substitute 3 in for x. So I'm going to rewrite everything else. The only thing I'm changing is instead of writing an x, I'm writing a 3. Okay, cool. So there's a whole lot I have to simplify on this side of the equation here. So the best thing to do is just do order of operations. So we have 4 times, that's multiplication. We have parentheses, we have subtraction. So order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, says we have to do the parentheses first. So it's going to be 4 times 3 plus 6, which is 9, minus 15 equals 21. And then 4 times 9, we have multiplication and subtraction. So order of operations says we have to do the multiplication. 4 times 9 is 36, minus 15 equals 21. And then we just have to do 36 minus 15. So I'm going to take that off to the side here. 36 minus 15, 6 minus 5 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2. So that equals 21 equals 21. So hey, that's a true statement, which means our solution here is the solution to the original equation right there. Woohoo! Okay, on to the next problems right here. 3, 4, and 5. Now I want to just keep on, these are kind of a little bit more difficult, so I just want to keep working on these ones together. So let's start with 3, okay? Now, remember the equation is split into 2 sides. The equal sign splits it into 2. And we're just going to look at this side of the equation and this side of the equation. And we're going to combine any like terms. We're always looking for that, right? So when we're looking on this side of the equation, what I notice is there's a 9b and there's also a negative 5b. So we are going to combine those like terms first. So 9b minus 5b is the same thing as just 9 minus 5, which is 4, and then put a b on the end of it. 9b minus 5b is 4b, plus 6. Let's have that equal sign lined up. And 18. Okay, cool. Now we're just to a 2-step. We're trying to figure out what b is. So we need to isolate b, get it by itself. There's 2 different steps, but we have to make sure that this one that's connected to the b, that one we do last. Okay, so we need to get rid of this positive 6. So the inverse of a positive 6 would be a negative 6 to both sides. So we're going to subtract 6 to both sides. Positive 6, negative 6 cancel out, becomes 0. We have 4b here. 18 minus 6. 8 minus 6 is 2. We drop down that 1, so it's 12. We're trying to get b by itself. Okay, we have 4b, which is like 4 times b. So we're going to divide both sides by 4. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. We're going to divide both sides by 4, which leaves us with b. It's by itself. Woohoo! 12 divided by 4 is 3. So we have b equals 3. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and check our answer. So I'm going to write the word check. I'm going to rewrite the original equation. 9b plus 6 minus 5b equals 18. And I'm going to substitute this 3 in for b. So it's going to be 9 times 3 plus 6 minus 5 times b's again, so I'm going to substitute 3 in there, equals 18. Now it's just order of operations on this side of the equation. Okay, I have, what do I have? I have multiplication and addition, and so I'm going to do the multiplication first. I'm going to do 9 times 3, which is 27, plus 6. And then here's some more multiplication, negative 5 times 3. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 5 times 3 is 15. So that's what the answer ends up being, negative 15. And then I'm just gonna, we have addition and subtraction, so we're just gonna go left to right. 27 plus 6. Oh, 27 plus 6. 7 plus 6 is 13. Write the 3, carry the 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have 33 minus 15 equals 18. And then I just need to do this. Okay, so I'm doing this off to the side. 33 minus 15. The 3 is not big enough. I need to borrow from the 3, make that 2, bring the 1 over. 13 minus 5 is 8. 2 minus 1 is 1. So I have 18 equaling 18, which is a true statement, which means that our solution right here, b equals 3, is the solution to the original equation. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and work on number 4 together as well. So remember, we're always looking to combine like terms, but they have to be on the same side of the equation. So this is one side of the equation here, and this is the other side of the equation here. Okay, so we're looking on this yellow side. Is there anything that are like terms? And what I see is I see this 2y, and I see a positive y right here. So we got a positive 2y and a positive y, which if we can combine those are like terms. So it's basically like 2 plus 1, which is 3, and then you stick a y on the end of it. So it's 3y. So 2y plus y is 3y. So those two end up being 3y minus 7 equals 8. Okay, now we have our two-step equation. All right, we're trying to figure out what y is, but we know that we have to keep this 3y together until the very, very end. Okay, so I have to do the, get rid of this negative 7. The inverse operation of a negative 7 would be a positive 7. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. That means I end up with 3y equals 8 plus 7, which is 15. Now I'm almost there. I'm trying to get this y by itself. Okay, it's 3y, which is the same thing as 3 times y. So the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times y is y. So now y is by itself. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my answer is y equals 5. Okay, now let's check it to see if it's right. So I'm going to write the word check. I'm going to write my original equation, 2y minus 7 plus y equals 8. I'm going to check it, make sure I wrote it right. 2y negative 7 plus 8 equals 8. Okay, looks good. And then here I have 2 places where the y is. The y is right here and it's right here. So I'm going to make sure I substitute that 5 into 2 places. So we have 2 times 5 minus 7 plus 5 equals 8. Okay, now I'm just going to simplify all of this. So I have to do order of operations, multiplication, subtraction, addition. So I have to do the multiplication first. So 2 times 5 is 10 minus 7 plus 5 equals 8. And then since I have subtraction and addition, they're on the same kind of level. I just go left to right. So 10 minus 7 is 3 plus 5. And 3 plus 5 is 8. So 8 equals 8. That's a true statement. Woohoo! Which means our answer, our solution right here, y equals 5 is the solution to the original equation. 2y minus 7 plus y equals 8. So, okay, now I want you to try to do 5 on your own, okay? I want you to work it out. I want you to do the check, write the word check, write the original equation, work all that out. So go ahead. Where's our friend? Oh, here's the pause dragon. Remind you to pause your device and then work the problem out, do the check, write the original equation, and then when you get done, press play and we'll check and see how you did. Okay, see you in a bit. All right, we are back. Let's see how you did. So we're going to divide the equation into 2 different sides. This is one side. Okay. Let me get that. There we go. Right there. And then this is the other side of the equation here. Okay. And so we're going to look on the same side and see if there's any like terms on the same side. And what I see is there's a negative 5c here. And there's also a negative 5c here. Okay, so those are 2 like terms, so I can combine those. So negative 5c, that's the same thing as going negative 5 plus negative 5. So since they're both negative, what we do is we just add the numbers together and keep the sign. So it's a negative 5 and a negative 5. So our answer is going to be negative, and then 5 plus 5 is 10. And then we just put that c on it. So negative 5c equals negative 10c. Then I'm going to drop this negative 12 down. We can't do anything with that because that's not a like term. And then equals 8. There's nothing to do here. So here we go. There's our two-step equation. We're trying to figure out what c is. We have to save this negative 10c to the very, very end. Okay, which means we have to get rid of this negative 12. So the inverse operation of negative 12 would be a positive 12 to both sides. So we're going to add 12 to both sides of the equation. Negative 12 and a positive 12, they cancel each other out. We're left with negative 10c equals 8 plus 12, which is 20. And we're still trying to figure out what c is. It's almost by itself, but not quite. Poor c. All it wants to do is be alone. Okay, so we have negative 10c. That means negative 10 times c. So we have to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division, and we just divide by whatever this is, and this is negative 10. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 10. Cool. Negative divided by a negative. I'm going to do the signs first. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 1 times c is c. Woohoo! C is by itself. Then we're going to do this bit. I'm 20 divided by negative 10. I'm going to do the signs first. So a positive number divided by a negative number is going to be a negative number. And then 20 divided by 10, 10 goes into 22 times. So our answer is c equals negative 2. So let's go ahead and check it and see if it's right. Okay, so I'm going to write the word check. I'm going to rewrite this problem. Negative 5c minus 12 minus 5c equals 8. I'm going to recheck it because there's a lot of negative signs here. Make sure I wrote it all correctly. And I did. Perfect. So the c is written in two places, so I have to make sure I input this negative 2 into those variables on two different places. And it's a negative number, so remember, whenever you're inputting a negative number or substituting it in, you put it in parentheses. So we're going to have negative 5 times a negative 2 minus 12 minus 5, and then we're substituting the negative 2 again equals 8. All right. So now on this side of the equation, we have a whole lot of stuff going on. That's a lot. Okay? So we have to simplify it. So we have multiplication, some subtraction, some more multiplication. So we have to order of operations state, so we have to do the multiplication first. So we have negative 5 times a negative 2. So I'm going to do the signs first. A negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? 5 times 2 is 10. And then I have minus 12. And then here I have a negative times a negative. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 2 is 10, and it's a positive 10, equals 8. And then I'm just going to go left to right because all I have is subtraction and addition. So 10 minus 12, we have a positive 10, a negative 12, so the signs are different. So I need to take the difference. So the difference between those two would be 2. But I got to figure out, is it a positive 2? Is it a negative 2? When I look at 10 and 12, 12 is a bigger number and it's negative, so that means my answer is going to be negative. And then I drop this down, plus 10 equals 8. Okay, so now I just need to do this bit. I got negative 2 plus 10. This is negative, this is positive, the signs are different, so that means I need to take the difference between 2 and 10. The difference between those two is 8, and then I just need to figure out, is it a positive or a negative? So I look at 2, I look at 10, which number is bigger? 10 is bigger, 10 is positive. My answer is going to be positive. I don't need to write it because it's understood that when you write the number 8, it's positive. So 8 equals 8. This 8 just carries down. And yeah, that's a true statement, which means c equals negative 2 is the correct answer. It's a solution to the original equation. So if you got that right, woohoo, good job. Okay. On to problem number 6. So we have the distributive property here. Remember the equation, the equal sign splits it into two sides. So we have the yellow side and we have the orange side, right? And we have to do the distributive property here. So we're gonna multiply this 2 to the r and then multiply it to the -3. So 2 times r would be 2r. 2 times -3 is a positive times a negative is gonna be a negative. 2 times 3 is 6. And then we add 6 to it, like that, equals 14. So I just wanna do 6 and 7 together, and then I'll have you do 8 on your own. But so these are a little bit more complicated. I wanna do a couple more together before you go out your own and do your problems. So with that said, let's go ahead and see if there's any like terms. On this side of the equation, I see there's a -6 and there's a +6. So there's numbers there, right? I can't combine anything with the r because there's nothing on this side that of the equation that has r. So -6 and a +6, they actually end up canceling each other out, which is great. So I just end up with 2r equals 14. So I'm trying to figure out what r is. I want to get r by itself. And it's really, really close. I just need to get rid of the 2. Well, the 2 is related to the r through multiplication. So I have to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I end up with r equals 14 divided by 2 is going to be 7. So my answer is r equals 7. And then I'm going to check it. Okay, so I'm going to write the word check. I'm going to rewrite my original equation. 2 multiplied by the quantity r minus 3 plus 6 equals 14. And then I'm going to substitute this 7 in for the r. So it's going to be 2 multiplied by the quantity. Instead of r, I'm writing 7 minus 3 plus 6 equals 14. Okay, now it's just order of operations with this bit right here on this side of the equation. So I have 2 times, and then I have parentheses, and I have addition. So I have to do the order of operations, which is the parentheses. So I'm going to go 2 times 7 minus 3, the parentheses, that's going to be 4 plus 6. And then I have multiplication and addition. So I have to do the multiplication. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 6. And then 8 plus 6 is 14. So this is a true statement, which means our solution right here, r equals 7, is the solution to the original equation. Okay, let's move on and do problem number 7 together. So remember, this equal sign divides the equation into 2 sides. We have this side of the equation, and then we have this side of the equation here. Okay, and I see some parentheses. So we have 8 plus 5 multiplied by the quantity, s minus 1 equals 18. So there's some parentheses, so we need to go ahead and do the distributive property first. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite this 8 plus 5 times s is just 5s. 5 times a -1, so it's a positive times a negative, which is going to be a negative. 5 times 1 is just 5. Equals 18. So we went ahead and did the distributive property. Now I'm looking on this side of the equation to see if there's any like terms. And what I see, as I say, we have some numbers. I see 8, and I also see -5 there. So those are like terms, and we can combine those. So 8 minus 5 is actually 3. It's a positive 3. So we end up with 3 plus 5s equals 18. And now we have our 2-step equation. We're trying to figure out what s is. We want to get s by itself, but we know that we have to leave this 5s until the very, very end, okay? Which means we have to get rid of this 3. So we're trying to see how is the 3 related to s. It's related through addition, so we have to do the inverse operation, which would be subtraction. So we're going to subtract both sides by 3. That means we have 3 minus 3, which is equal to 0, which is exactly what we want, because when it equals 0, that means that we're 1 step closer to getting s by itself. 18 minus 3, that 8 minus 3 is 5. Drop it out, it's 15. Okay, cool. We're trying to get s by itself. So 5s is the same thing as 5 times s, so we have to do the inverse operation, which would be division. We're going to divide both sides by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1 times s is s. So we have s equals 15 divided by 5, which would be 3. So our answer is s equals 3. Okay, cool. Let's check it. So let's write the word check. We're going to write the original equation. 8 plus 5 times a quantity s minus 1 equals 18. I'm going to make sure that I wrote it correctly down. Perfect. And now I'm going to substitute 3 in for s. So 8 plus 5, instead of s, I'm writing 3 minus 1. Okay, so I have this, and I'm just going to do the order of operations to simplify this side of the equation. I have to do the parentheses first, so I'm rewriting this stuff. 8 plus 5, I'm going to do that one thing. 3 minus 1 is 2 equals 18. And now I have addition and multiplication, so order of operations states I have to do the multiplication first. So I have 8 plus 5 times 2, which is 10. And then 8 plus 10 is 18. So 18 equals 18. This is a true statement, which means our solution, s equals 3, is the solution to the original equation. 8 plus 5 multiplied by the quantity, s minus 1 equals 18. Woohoo! Okay, on to number 8. I want you to try to do number 8 on your own. So now it's time to pause. Go ahead and work this problem back. And when you get done with it and you did the check and you wrote your original equation and all that type of stuff, go ahead and press play and let's make sure that you got the problem right. Okay, see you in a bit. All right, we're back. Let's go ahead. This equation is split into two sides. We have this side of the equation, and this side of the equation right over here. So I see that there's parentheses, so we have to do the distributive property. We're going to distribute the 6 to the x and then distribute the 6 to the positive 3. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 3 is a positive 18 plus 38 equals 2. Okay, cool. So now we're going to look at this side of the equation and see, hey, are there any like terms? And what I see is there's some numbers. Positive 18 and positive 38, they are like terms, so we can combine those together and just write them as one number. So I'm going to go over to my side, and I'm just going to add 38 plus 18 and see what that is. Okay, 8 plus 8 is 16. I write the 6, I carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, so that means it equals 56. Equals 2, and I'm going to rewrite this 6x, and it's positive, so it's going to be a positive 56. All right, cool. So now we have our two-step equation, okay? I'm trying to get x by itself. I need to isolate that. That means I have to keep this 6x together to the very end. Okay, and I need to get rid of this positive 56. So plus 56, the inverse operation of that would be a negative 56 to both sides. Okay. Okay. Perfecto. All right. So yes. Okay, so this cancels out and becomes 0. I'm left with 6x equals, I have a positive 2 and a negative 56, so I have to find the difference between the two. Okay, if I take 2 away from 56, I'm left with 54. And I have to figure out, is it a positive 54 or a negative 54? And I look at which number is bigger. 56 is obviously bigger than 2, and 56 is negative, which means this is a negative 54. And I'm almost there. I just need to get x by itself. So close, so close. It's 6 times x, so the inverse operation of multiplication would be division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times x is x. And then I have a negative. I'm going to do the signs first. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 54 divided by 6 is actually ends up being 9. 6 goes in there 9 times. So there's my answer. X equals negative 9. But I'm not done. We have to do the check, and I hope that you did the check. If you didn't do the check, write the word check and start doing the check right now. Okay, so we have check. We're going to write the original problem down. So we have 6 multiplied by the quantity, x plus 3 plus 38 equals 2. Perfect. Let's go ahead and substitute that negative 9 in for the x. So we have 6, and then just negative 9 plus 3 plus 38 equals 2. For this one, it's okay just to sub that negative 9 in for the x without putting it in parentheses. I mean, it's already in parentheses, but the reason is because there's not a number in front of x besides 1. It's 1x. And so when it's 1x, you can just put that -9 in because there's already some parentheses there. Okay, so we have to simplify this side of the equation. So we have 6 times, which is multiplication, then we have parentheses, and then we have addition. So order of operations states that we have to do the parentheses first. So I'm going to rewrite this 6 times. Okay, so we're going to do the parentheses, -9 plus 3. So this is a negative. This is a positive. When the signs are different, you take the difference. And so that's what we're going to do. The difference between 9 and 3 is 6. But we need to figure out, is it a positive 6 or a negative 6? So we look at the numbers 9 and 3. 9 is bigger and 9 is negative. That means our answer is negative. So we have 6 times a -6 plus 38 equals 2. Perfect. So we have multiplication and addition. So we're going to do the multiplication first. That's what the order of operations states we have to do. So I'm going to do the signs first. I have a positive and a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. 6 times 6 is 36 plus 38 equals 2. Cool. So I just need to do this bit. I got a -36. I have a positive 38. So I have a negative and a positive. The signs are different, so I have to take the difference between these two. I'm going to put the bigger number on top, 38 and 36, and just figure out what the difference of those numbers are. 8 take away 6 is 2. 3 take away 3 is 0. So the difference is 2. Now I have to figure out, is it a positive 2 or a negative 2? I look at both of these numbers. 38 is bigger than 36, and 38 is positive, which means my 2 is positive. So 2 equals 2, which means it's a true statement, which means x equals -9 is the solution to the original equation right up here. And if you got that right, great job. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.